So, you're thinking about buying a house, right? It's the American dream, but man, those financial goalposts just keep on moving. Today, we're going to cut through all the noise, run the real numbers, and figure out what it actually costs to own a home in 2026.
This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And sometimes it's literally a million-dollar question. You probably have a number in your head, but I'm telling you what the bank says you can afford and what your budget can actually handle, well, those are often two very, very different things. Let's find out the truth.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the big picture, this affordability gap everyone's talking about. Then we'll expose this kind of flawed rule that banks use. After that, I'll show you a much better way to think about it. We'll run the numbers together, and by the end, you'll know exactly what you can comfortably afford.
Okay, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. The reality right now is a little uncomfortable. You've got mortgage rates floating around 6%, and the median home price is sitting at $400,000. Put those two things together, and the math for buying a home has gotten a whole lot tougher for most people.
So, how do lenders even decide how much they're willing to loan you? Well, most of them use this old school formula called the 28-36 rule. And yeah, it's standard, but it can also be incredibly, dangerously misleading.
So here's how it works. The rule says your total house payment, that's your mortgage, interest, taxes, the whole shebang, should be less than 28% of your gross monthly income. And that's the key word right there, gross. That's your salary before taxes, before health insurance, before anything comes out. This rule is really there to protect the bank, not to protect your wallet.
And that's exactly why it's so risky. It totally ignores all those other real-world costs like a leaky roof or your heating bill. The bank's main job is to make sure they get paid back. They're not too worried about whether you have enough left over to save for retirement or, live your life. So let me say this again. Just because you get approved does not mean you can afford it.
Okay, so if we're going to toss out the bank's flawed rule, what do we use instead? It's actually way simpler. We're going to focus on the one number that really matters, the money that actually lands in your bank account every month.
And the difference is just crystal clear. Instead of that whole 28% of your gross pay thing, a much safer, more realistic goal is to keep your total housing costs under 30% of your net income, your take-home pay.
Just so we're all on the same page, let's be super clear about what net income is. This is your take-home pay. It's the only number that matters for your actual budget. Your big gross salary might look amazing on paper, but the money that hits your bank account, that is your financial reality, period.
All right, now for the really fun part. Let's see what this whole gross versus net thing looks like in the real world. We're going to break down 4 different price points to see how the numbers stack up.
Let's start with a $250,000 home. Now, I know in some big cities that sounds impossible, but in a lot of the country, this is a pretty typical starter home price. So let's see what that looks like.
Okay, so if we assume a standard 20% down payment, you're going to need $50,000 in cash right up front. That leaves you with a loan of $200,000. At a 6% interest rate, your basic mortgage payment is about $1,200 a month. Then you got to add in taxes and insurance, so your total monthly nut is going to be around $1,600.
And here it is. This chart shows the affordability gap perfectly. The bank, using their rule, would say $68,000, but to comfortably afford that $1,600 payment, using our much smarter rule, you really need a salary closer to $85,000. That is a huge difference.
Okay, next up, let's double it. $500,000. Now we're getting above the national median price. This is the kind of price that gets you a pretty substantial home in a lot of places.
For a house like this, you need a staggering $100,000 in cash for the down payment. For most people, that alone is a massive hurdle. Then you've got a $400,000 loan, which pushes your all-in monthly payment to around $3,000.
So the bank says you need to make about $128,000 a year. But to be actually comfortable, our rule says you need a household income of $160,000. We're now at a level where this is almost certainly a 2-income household with both people making pretty good money.
And now we're getting into the big leagues, the million-dollar home. This is becoming more and more common in those major coastal cities, New York, Miami, San Francisco.
The numbers just keep getting bigger. Your down payment is a cool 200 grand in cash. Your monthly payment is hovering around $6,000. Plus, at this price, you're probably going to need what's called a jumbo loan, which just means it comes with way stricter rules about your credit and how much cash you have saved up.
And this brings us to a really stark reality. When you crunch the numbers, only a $1 home. To do it comfortably, you need a household income of around $320,000 a year.
All right, last one. Let's step into the luxury tier. At $2 million, this isn't really about budgeting anymore. This is about being in an extremely exclusive income bracket. I mean, these numbers are just staggering. A $400,000 down payment and a monthly cost of over $12,000. This is territory that's basically reserved for the top 2% of American households. We're talking about two very high earners in fields like finance, medicine, or tech. So, after running through all of that, what's the bottom line? Let's boil it all down into one simple, actionable takeaway for you.
Here it is. This is the ultimate cheat sheet. If you want to comfortably afford a home using our smart 30% of net income rule, you need about 85 grand for a 250K house, 160 for a 500K house, 320 for a $1 million house, and a whopping $700,000 a year for a $2 million property. That's the brutal, honest math of buying a house today.
Look, the whole point of this isn't to scare you off. It's to empower you.